Welcome back to Valley Bible Studies podcast.
That was a cold open if I've ever heard one.
What do you want me to say?
No, I don't know. Like,
good evening and welcome to the... I don't know.
You don't know that they're listening in the evening. This is a podcast.
Well,
it could be the morning. A lot of people listen on their drive to work. I'm just saying.
You say a lot of people, like a lot of people actually listen. But
oh, yikes.
Oh.
Hey, guys.
Was that
How's it going?
Was that too soon?
We appreciate you.
Yeah, for those who do listen, we know we're not this, super church conglomerate podcast or anything.
But we're glad you're here.
We do it for the fans.
We do our best.
Actually, we don't do it for the fans. We do it for God. But
I was going to say we do it for the church.
Yeah. The fans are like, we
it's
can't even
the
call
same.
them. Here's the thing. Our fans are our friends. Like,
I was going to say, it's not really
right,
a fandom as much as it's like a Bible study group, kind of.
We don't have a fan base at all. We have people who listen because
we have a church.
Yeah, because they're kind enough to support. So, in other words,
and maybe people who are curious about the Bible.
Yeah.
Which, if that's you, welcome. We're going to talk about the Bible.
Also.
Not all of it. We don't have time for that, but.
Preach.
Yeah. 100%.
So, again, welcome back. Sorry about that.
Yeah. Way to insult our listener base.
I'm not insulting anybody.
We're a minute and a half in.
I'm not insulting anybody. I literally just said.
You insulted us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I do that all the time.
Fair. But.
Yeah. I didn't insult the people who listen. I appreciate the people who listen. Whatever. You know what? So much for a dose of dopamine. Okay? You've ruined my mood.
So much for a cold open. We kind of ruined both of those now.
Yeah.
We got to do the dose of dopamine, though.
So, for those who aren't used to what we're doing.
For anyone who's new, like there aren't any.
Okay, you're the one that's dragging it out. Okay. So anyway,
moving on.
Dose of dopamine.
Yes.
You go first.
Okay. What was mine? I had one. The Easter egg hunt that we had at church the other day. That was my dose of dopamine, especially seeing.
That was a pretty good turnout too.
It was a pretty good turnout, and so we had the little kids in one area, and
we also lumped it with the Thursday coffee.
Yes, we also
they moved it to Saturday.
Right. So we sort of did the intergenerational thing there, but we had the little kids hunting in one area, we had the teenagers hunting in another area, and seeing them be excited, especially the little kids. It was fun to watch the teenagers hunt for stuff too and be competitive about it, but especially the little kids, seeing their face light up when they see another egg and see another piece of candy never gets old.
Yeah.
That's all.
Well, and also, okay, so get this. This guy, he puts different things inside the Easter eggs. But by the end of it, how many Easter eggs did you actually end up doing?
450.
Dude. So
it was a lot.
He filled every single egg with something.
Shout out to Ben, Trent, Jeremy, and Jessica for actually helping me fill the eggs, and shout out to Angela and Austin for helping me hide the eggs.
Yeah,
because it was definitely a team effort.
I will say some of the eggs were very well hidden.
Thank you.
Especially the one he hid from everyone. So typically,
okay.
No. I got this.
There are 451 eggs.
Okay. So 450 eggs, they had a Starburst or a piece of candy, a mint, or something, right? There was one egg, that 451st, had $50 in it.
Uh-huh.
A $50 bill.
I made the same offer last year. If you can find the $50 egg, you can keep the $50.
Did anyone find it last year?
Yes.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. CJ Sprouse found it last year.
I did not know that.
100%.
Where was it last year? What if it had a grate or something?
So I opened the vent in my house and put it behind my air filter, and then it fell down into the AC unit, and CJ found it because he crawled under my house under the crawl space and opened the vent to the AC unit.
Okay, I feel like that's breaking and entering, but whatever.
It's fine. Everything was unlocked.
Okay, well.
He got the $50.
You hear that?
But that's what I tell them. That's what I tell the kids when I say there's a $50 egg. If you want $50, you have to earn $50.
So this is what I'm hearing. All right, you hear that, world? Luke's house is open.
Not now. Just for the egg hunt.
Well, this year, the dude taped it inside of the top of the chimney.
Inside of my chimney.
As in, he would have had children climb his roof.
They almost did. They got a ladder out.
What are you doing?
Letting kids have fun.
On your roof.
Only once. And their parents were there. Yvette and Jessica were standing right there.
All right.
That's on them. They didn't actually get on the roof. They did get a ladder out to look up at the roof.
Well, here's the thing. If they fell off the roof, they have a nurse and a counselor. Everything would have been fine.
Right. They're good.
Okay.
They're good.
I actually heavily debated. So you gave somebody a ride home.
I did.
Afterwards. And I was behind you on the way out down the street.
You debated going back and getting it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I looked at my wife and I said, we should go get the $50. And she,
thought about it?
I think she wanted to more than I did.
Thanks, Sid.
We didn't. It's still there. Unless you went and got it.
I mean, yeah, I went and got it after the fact.
I was going to say, because I'm going to leave the podcast right now and go get it.
Yeah, no, it's gone.
Okay.
The $50 is in my wallet.
Okay. Where's your wallet?
Don't worry about it.
Okay. All right, so my dose of dopamine is the fact that as a school teacher, I can finally see the light at the end of the tunnel.
It's April.
It is April.
It's late April.
Testing week is the first week of May.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're going to test in early May, retest in the following weeks, and then we're done. And I'm excited about it. I've had a good group of kids this year, so
yeah,
it's like a bittersweet thing.
It's always a bittersweet
thing,
especially with good kids.
Get this, man. So the kids that are graduating this year, was my first class. At the high school.
At the high school. Yeah, that's true.
So the first kids that I had.
You've now seen a full class go all the way through high school.
Yeah.
That's kind of wild.
Yeah.
I mean, we have 2 graduating from our youth group in
You know what I am now?
And they were going into freshman year when I first came.
You know what I am now?
As an intern.
OLD.
Yeah, same.
Old.
I think we both are at this point.
I turned 30 this year.
That's true.
We'll get there when we get there. Okay. If the good Lord will let me. We'll see. So, that's what Paige does. It's really cute.
She points
she takes both fingers and she points at it. She goes, so. And then she'll go, wait a minute.
She says, wait a minute?
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah, wait a minute.
That's funny.
Wait a minute. Super cute. My daughter turned 2.
Yeah.
Last Sunday.
That's true.
I have a 2-year-old. And, hey, world.
Oh yeah, you can say this now because most of the people listening to this know it now.
Baby Luck at number 2 is on the way.
Whoop whoop.
Whoop whoop. I'm not terrified at all.
No, why would you be?
Okay. So today, what we're going to be talking about is congregational evangelism.
We talked about personal evangelism last time.
Yep.
Now we're asking the question: what does that look like when you add the church to the equation?
So
because you're not just a Christian, right? I mean, you are a Christian, hopefully. Hi. But
if you're not, talk to us.
Yeah, that's why we're here. But when you become a Christian, you also become a member of the church. So there's evangelism that happens on some level as an individual, but also there's an understanding that we are all evangelizing for the same purpose, for the same goal, and as part of the same body, that being the church. So today we're talking about evangelism from that side of things. How does the church evangelize as a group?
So, Luke, how does the church evangelize as a group?
I'm glad you asked. We said this, we didn't talk as much about it last time, but I think the key to understanding congregational evangelism specifically, it's also true of personal evangelism, but congregational evangelism specifically is understanding the book of Acts. Because if you look starting in chapter 2, when the church is founded in chapter 2, all the way through the end of it, yes, you have people like in the early chapters, Peter is like the guy, right? He's the one not in charge because Jesus is in charge, but he's the one that the narrative focuses on. He's the one that is at the center of a lot of the most significant conversions in the early chapters. Around chapter 12, 13, that becomes Paul. Paul becomes the central figure of the rest of the book of Acts, really. So you have individual guys at the center of the narrative. But I'm pretty sure that if we had them on the podcast, which that would be awesome, we can't do that. But if we had them on, I'm pretty sure one of the first things they would say is, I didn't do any of that by myself, right? If you look at Peter always has traveling companions with him. Paul always had people like Barnabas and Silas and Luke and Mark and Timothy and Titus. nobody is a successful missionary evangelist like Peter, like Paul, isolated in an island. And if you follow church history as it's laid out in the book of Acts, at every point, and Luke as the narrator, not me, the Luke, as the narrator, makes a point whenever he's talking about the church. Like he does an aside and he'll like sort of pause the action for a minute and he just says, and the church was together, and the church as they were together were doing this and this and this. And all of the things that the church was doing together were pointed towards the goal of spreading the gospel. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
You got to be plugged into that network.
The one thing that I want to point out is that this is a pretty simple answer to the question, but the question being, are the first century churches and today's churches going to look the same?
Not exactly.
So
culturally, no.
Yeah, culturally, no. Right? The quick answer would be no. But fundamentally,
in terms of doctrine, yes.
Like, yeah, if you look at the foundations of the early church, they should be exactly the same today.
Right.
Right?
Doctrinally and in terms of that fellowship and community.
Right.
Yes.
The early church drew people to Christ because of the way that they talked to people, the love that they expressed to people, and the collectiveness that they had with one another. Mm-hmm. So let me ask you this question, and this you could treat this rhetorical if you would like.
Okay.
Does the church today do the same thing? Do we invite people because of the connectivity that we have with one another? Do we show people that we are Christ's church because of the love that we express to not only to each other as a church family, but to the rest of the world as well? Can we actually look at the church that Christ established here in 2025 and say, yeah, we're behaving the same way that they did in the first century?
And I think a lot of that, again, goes back to, well, it's the same question as the question of worship, which that's going to be the next series that we start. This is sort of the end of the salvation and evangelism series. Next episode, we start a worship series, so look for that coming up. But it's sort of the same question, because basically that whole series is going to talk about the balance between spirit and truth. The fact that you have to be doing the right things in the right ways, but also with the right attitude.
Right.
And I think that's what's captured in the book of Acts. Like at the end of chapter 2, later in chapter 4, and other places throughout the book, what Luke specifically takes time to mention is they were devoted to doctrine, yes. They were devoted to teaching, yes. They were also devoted to things like being in each other's homes. And
that looks very different now.
Like being in the same place and having community. And in their situation, a lot of times you would have people selling property and selling possessions and giving that money to the church collective. And you don't have as much of that today, but you still have like the prioritization of the church, right? If somebody needed something, you would expect the church to be the place where people come together to make that need, like to facilitate that need. Well, right? That's the family aspect of it.
Let me give you an example of that happening right now in 2025.
Okay.
Ben and Trent Dull here at Westside,
love them,
have kickstarted a community support day, which is happening May 10th.
From 11 to 2, if you'd like to come. Yeah.
May 10th, 11 to 2, here at the Westside building. If you are interested or know somebody that could benefit from this, we are giving away
a bunch of stuff.
Like, that room is full.
Yeah.
Of things that, household items, clothes. For those who have kids, we're giving away diapers and wipes.
And toys and all sorts of stuff.
We're going to have meal boxes. Like, that sort of thing. Like, people in the community, people who are in the church are in need. And so Ben and Trent found a way to actually facilitate a way to give back.
That's the church coming together to care for other people. And that's doing what Acts is talking about.
Exactly. But my question more is towards how we interact with the community as a congregation beyond that.
Like on the evangelism front.
Correct. Like, can we, if a group of us were to, like, not just a youth group, but like say you, me, and a few of our friends from here at our congregation were to go to a concert, were to go out to dinner, were to go to the park, would people be able to look at us and see the way we're interacting with each other and say, they seem different.
Something's off about them, but in a
and
good
not
way.
like not like, something's off about them.
They're weird.
Are they on drugs?
Right. Yeah, not that.
Nothing like that. But they would see that we're not participating in things like, so if you go to a concert, alcohol is like
all over the place.
That's what makes a concert go berserk, right? Yeah. Even at restaurants, right? A lot of restaurants have bars nowadays. Or what was the other one I said? The park. You can find all kinds of things people doing at the park they probably shouldn't be doing. Are they able to see us and go, well, they're behaving a little different?
Well, again, and to go back to the Acts example, all those different times that Luke talks about the church doing stuff, it's not just that there's an absence of bad, there's the presence of something good. It's not that they're just avoiding the cultural things that would make them blend in with the rest of society. They're also actively doing things as a congregation that make them different than the rest of society. It's the same thing as, like, we talked about repentance, right? And when we said repentance is changing your mind, it starts with changing your mind, but you don't just remove the bad. You replace the bad with something good that takes its place in your priorities.
Yeah, there can't be a void.
Right.
Yeah.
The church has to do the same thing if it's going to make the impact that it's supposed to. It can't just be, this is where you go if you want to be sober and you want to practice a healthy sexual relationship and you want to worship in the right way. All of those have to be things that are necessary, things that we emphasize. But if that's all we're offering people, and we're not offering them that sense of, this is also the place where you can come together as a community and do good. For yourselves, yes. For the rest of your church family, yes. But also for other people. And part of that is the evangelism mission. Part of it is specifically going out and proclaiming the gospel to people. And we have to have that piece. But part of it is just being aimed at things that are different than the world is aimed at. I think that goes a long way. And I think that and the specific and overt evangelism piece have to both be going on for them to have the impact that they should.
Yeah. All right, so another question for you then.
Okay.
Where does it all start? Congregational evangel. Okay. Duh.
I mean, I'm just saying, that's where it starts.
In the congregation. Within the congregation.
Has to start with leadership.
And so the first thing is that leadership needs to be established.
Mm-hmm.
That's a tricky process.
It is a tricky process.
You and I both, I'm sure anybody listening knows of a congregation that either has limited leadership or no leadership at all.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always wondered my curiosity is piqued when it comes to congregations that are functional without established leadership.
Yeah.
And so, like, they seem functional, but are they actually functional? I don't know.
Well, it's not the ideal, right?
No.
Because I don't think Paul literally says they're going around and they're establishing elderships in every church. I think that's for a reason. It's because God is smart enough to know that that's the ideal in that situation.
Right. So, I mean, this might be one of those wild questions that potentially can be answered in today's age. But for the congregations that don't have leadership, are we to do something about that?
That's tough. Yeah. Because you don't want to take away congregational autonomy.
Right.
But the leadership is an essential piece. Anyway, I think the point of having the leadership as the focus is, yes, the leadership has to be established. The leadership also has to be motivated.
Yeah,
right?
They can't.
The drive for evangelism, to a large extent, has to start from the top down.
Correct. Sitting still as a congregation is not actually sitting still. It's
going
dying.
Backwards.
It's dying.
Mm-hmm.
If a congregation is not doing anything to actively evangelize, if the congregation is not doing anything to actively grow,
mm-hmm.
then it's not sitting still. It's dying.
We talked about this in our class this morning, which you skipped because you hate us, but it's okay.
Okay, false. No, whoa. No, back up.
You were up here doing your audio-visual thing.
No, I was not. I was actually filling in for the main man, Squeaky, himself, because he had to be downstairs, and so he asked me to watch the cameras, the security cameras upstairs.
Fair enough.
And I found that out last minute. So
fair enough. Hi, Squeaky. What was I saying? So in the class we were talking about this idea. We used the book of Judges as an example, and you look at that, and Judges is a cyclical book. Like the same stuff sort of happens in like different variations, but of the same pattern happen over and over again. And what you see in that pattern is that it basically takes 2 generations worth of people for Israel to go from healthy to unhealthy, and from plugged into God to unplugged from God and His law. You have a generation that's doing that. You have a generation that's doing the right thing. The next generation after that, they remember their parents doing that, but they're not as invested as their parents are. And by the time you get to what would be the grandchildren, everything has gone to pieces. And it's because we don't have that continual motivation to seek God and to seek Him as a priority. And that's because the key verse of Judges is, there was no king in Israel, so everybody did what was right according to his or her own judgment, right? All of that to say, the function of leadership within the church is to help motivate us to pursue God as a priority and to pursue evangelism and benevolence and all of the things that the church should be about as priorities.
Right. And when you look at a church that may be, dying or dwindling, it's typically not an issue or a problem of anybody or of anything that anybody in the congregation did currently. Like the problem probably started
a while
back when.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when someone is leaving the church. When you start noticing that they're not coming to church anymore, the problem's worse than you think.
Yeah, you're already not necessarily late, but not too late. But
yeah, you're not too late, but you are late.
Yeah, the problem is it started before you became aware of it.
Yes. Yeah. That
can also be true on a congregational level.
Yeah, the decisions for them to start leaving was made long ago. They just now built up the courage to start doing it.
Yep.
And the process is kind of similar with
congregations.
And if you flip it, if you're going to do the right thing, you need to make that decision now.
Yep.
Results aren't, when it comes to congregational evangelism, the results aren't going to show immediately.
Nope.
That's not one of those. It's like losing weight. You can choose to lose weight today. That doesn't mean tomorrow you're going to be 50 pounds lighter. Right. We can choose as a congregation to start evangelizing today. That doesn't mean that our numbers are going to grow.
Just because you start a new evangelism effort doesn't mean that the next Sunday you're going to baptize 10 people.
Right. We're kind of at Westside. We're going through that. We're really pushing evangelism. We're really pushing.
That's one of the reasons this community day is such a thing, is because we're using it as like that outreach aspect.
But we've been doing this for well over, I don't know.
It's been probably, 6, 7, 8 months?
Yeah. I was going to say almost a year.
Yeah.
And so with that in mind.
And we've seen results, not like earth-shattering results.
It's one of those things
you're getting the ball rolling.
It's just going to take time, right? Results that we want are going to take time. And it's not going to be easy, right? But I mean, things that are worth it aren't easy. Otherwise, everybody would do it.
That's very true.
Like losing weight.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, too soon.
Yeah, it's okay. Not soon enough. All right.
Well, that's true. This community day can't happen soon enough. I looped it back in. You see that?
I am looking forward to that. I'm going to be late, but
I think it'll be fun.
Yeah. We have a spring practice that morning, but we start at 10. The practice ends at 10. So I'll get here about 10:30ish.
Well, the actual event starts at 11. Setup starts at 10.
So I'm good.
Yeah,
and I'll have everything like delegated to where.
And I really do like the congregation has really come together, at least on the donation side. Yes. And we have so much stuff.
Yeah, that room is full. I just hope people show up.
Yeah, and they will.
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah, I have faith that they will.
Yep.
But
if this is going to maybe sound negative, but if we help 10 people through this, that's 10 people that have come to the building that have never come before.
Dude, if it's one.
If
it's one.
Especially if one person comes back the next day. I mean, I'm preaching that next Sunday, the day after this, and preaching about what we just did the day before.
We only need to help one.
Right. If we can get one person to come to worship,
worth it.
Worth it.
Absolutely.
One family, one. I mean, the
one
more
soul.
the one, the merrier. But
yeah,
one person.
And that's kind of the foundation of everything that we've talked about with congregational evangelism, is that it has to start somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Well, it has to start with kind of what we just said. Like, do you value souls that much?
That's okay. Well, let's dig it deeper. Just making a list of priorities. What do you actually prioritize? What do you actually value more than another? Do you value sleeping in on a Saturday, or going golfing, or, going to the park, or staying at home and relaxing, or whatever it is that you have to do on a Saturday? Or do you value reaching souls?
Or do you want the church to grow? Want to help the church grow?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So let's shift gears just a little bit.
Okay.
And talk about the unity of the church. Right. We talked about, what we need to be doing, what that looks
where
like.
It starts from.
But let's talk about the collectivization of the church, and what that looks like, the unity of the church. So
sure.
So 1 Corinthians chapter 12.
Heard of it?
Okay. Hope so.
We did do an episode on 1 Corinthians.
Let's look at verses 12 through 17. I'm reading from ESV.
Okay.
Hope that's okay. I'm usually a New King James kind of guy.
I preach from the ESV, so it's whatever.
Yeah. You could probably quote this.
That's not true, but go on.
Yeah, okay. So, again, 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verses 12 through 17. For just as the body is one and has many members, and all the members of the body, though many, are one body, so it is with Christ. For in one Spirit we were all baptized into one body, Jews or Greeks, slaves or free, all were made to drink of one Spirit. For the body does not consist of one member, but of many. If the foot should say, because I'm not a hand, I do not belong to the body, that would not make it any less part of the body. And if the ear should say, because I am not an eye, I do not belong to the body, that would not make it any less part of the body. If the whole body were an eye, where would the sense of hearing be? If the whole body were an ear, where would the sense of smell be? So, we're looking at those verses. Everybody has a crucial part.
Yep.
Everybody has a role to play.
You don't have a body without all of the members coming together to
Correct.
do their part.
And my part it does look different than yours.
Mm-hmm.
I am not a preacher.
That's true.
I am not someone who I did it a couple weeks ago, and I think I did fine.
You didn't pass out. You didn't teach heresy. That's a win.
I didn't say the wrong things.
Right.
But that's not my forte.
Yeah.
While I probably could do it, you're made for it. My job as a deacon over all of our audio visual technical stuff, you could probably do it, and you would do it fine.
But not as well as you can do it.
But I don't know about not as well, but I've been appointed to do that.
Right.
That is my responsibility.
And like the example that I think of, like, I can preach, sure. Shout out to Nancy and Marcia for running the card writing thing.
Yeah.
Like, they are so good at that.
They are the definition of cogs.
Yes.
In a machine.
100%.
They're the ones that keep everything rolling smoothly.
Yeah.
Even though we don't notice it.
Genuinely, without the work that those two ladies do behind the scenes, a large part of our current evangelism push would fall apart.
I agree with that.
100%.
Yeah. No
They're
doubt.
awesome.
No doubt. You look at our Bible class teachers.
Mm-hmm.
You look at our nursery attendants. Right? I love my daughter.
Yeah.
I love her to death. I'm going to love my next kid to death. I don't do well with other people's children. especially when like I'm taking care of them and they start freaking out. I don't do well with that.
Right.
My daughter, especially when she was younger and in the nursery class, she would scream.
I'm aware. Yep.
Oh, it was horrible.
I remember.
She would not let go of mama to go into that class. And so I can't imagine being Karen Muncie or my mother even.
Yeah.
And there were a few other teachers in that class, but like I can't imagine someone that's not my kid and they're screaming bloody murder, and I'm thinking, okay, so my options are find a way to shut up this kid, or go
freak out,
or go get their parent.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't know how to do the former, and I don't want to do the latter.
Right.
You have people that consistently fill up communion. You have people that are consistently greeters, right? I'm not the best greeter
people
because
who serve in worship in different ways.
Yeah.
All the men who do that.
I'm not the best greeter because nobody wants to see my face the first thing when they walk into this building. That's a bad way to start the day, right? But everybody has a role.
Welcome to church, everybody.
And hey, welcome to West. Oh,
that doesn't go well.
Right. But everybody has a responsibility. As a football coach, let me tell you this. As a football coach, you don't win games by everybody trying to be the hero.
Mm-hmm. You win games by everybody doing what they're supposed to do.
Bill Belichick said it best, and I actually got to meet Bill Belichick. I went to a clinic in North Carolina.
Wow, you're so cool.
No, that was I'd rather watch grass grow. That was the most boring
It was that bad?
talk I've ever heard in my life.
Yikes.
He
is kind of a very monotone guy.
Yes, and he talked about like how he got into football. Anyway, it was horrible. But one thing that he's always said that I have taken to heart as a football coach is I don't care what your job is, your responsibility to this team is to do your job. Not to do someone else's, not to try to be the big hero, not to try to score, not to try to this, that, whatever. You do your job.
You don't want the left tackle to be the quarterback.
Correct.
You don't want the quarterback to try to be the wide receiver.
You don't want the punter, right? Leading the charge.
Running back, yeah.
Right. Everybody has a role. Your responsibility is to fulfill that role. Mm-hmm. Do your job. Mm-hmm. And I always tell my guys, three words. Do your job. And as long as we as Christians are doing our job, whether that's within the congregation or like we talked about last time, outside of the congregation, out in the world on a personal level, your job as ascribed within the Bible, right, is to live as a Christian and to spread God's word.
And I think that this is where, to sort of take the idea of like different members of the same body, to take that another way, I think this is where personal evangelism and congregational evangelism
come together.
Meet.
Yes.
In the sense that each one of us has a different job within the church, yes, but also when you take it external, each one of us has people in our lives that we know, friends that we have outside of the church, and we're the only member of the church that person knows. Mm-hmm. You're going to reach people that I can't. I'm going to reach people that you can't. I remember, I think it was you who was teaching, because I wasn't teaching the teenagers, but I was in the class with whoever it was who was teaching, and I'm pretty sure it was you. And the class was about the eldership. But I remember you using the example of the 3 elders that we had at the time. Tom wasn't an elder yet, but the 3 that we had at the time, and saying, like, each one of those 3 men is absolutely qualified to be an elder, is a fantastic individual. But I go to different ones for different things.
I remember that class.
Yep. I go to Jeff for this. I go to Mike for this. I go to Danny for this. And a large part of why you went to each one for that specific thing was because of who they knew, right? The connections that each of them had.
They had different skill sets.
Different skill sets that lead them to have different connections outside of the church to facilitate doing things with, like, on an outreach and evangelism level.
And doing it well. Or at least the best that it could be. Because I probably could have gone to any 3 of the elders. I probably could have gone to anybody in the congregation for certain connections. But who is going to fit that bill the best?
Right. Of course, you could probably just ask Chachi, and he knows everybody in Salem. But
you got that right.
But still, even with having somebody like him, you might be the only Christian that X person out there knows. Yeah. And it's our job to do our job towards the people that we might be the only Christian that they know. We might be the only, to use the old saying, we might be the only sermon that they ever hear just by how we live our life.
Well, and aside from the fact that it being, your professional occupation, anybody that I might not be comfortable doing a Bible study with, like, there's been a handful already that I've just sent to you.
Yep.
Like, there's, we can keep going. I know a guy that's going to do this a lot better for you.
Yep. I've traded study partners with people before.
Right.
Because of the relationships they have with them, because of specific questions that they need answered or whatever. That's just part of it.
And everybody has their own specific skill set.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about the different roles. Like, you're not going to catch me leading singing.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. I'll do the Lord's Supper. I'll pray. Whatever you need. I'm not leading singing.
Yeah.
It's not happening.
We've officially established now that you'll preach before you'll lead singing.
You got that right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, let me talk for 40 minutes opposed to singing a song.
Yep.
Yes, please. But that's me. There are other people, that...
Well, Josh. Josh is a great song leader.
Wonderful song leader. Hey, Josh, would you want to preach? He would do it, but
he has before.
He has, but I guarantee he'd rather lead singing.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's just about your comfort level, what you can do, and what you want to do for the church.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is that you're doing it for the church.
Yep.
And everybody doing their part. That's what creates congregational unity.
I like talking about this because we've mentioned so many people at Westside over the course of it.
That's a good sign.
That's pretty cool.
Green flag.
Yeah,
Booyah.
100%.
Yeah. So, and I think that's a good place to leave off, is that we've seen that. Mm-hmm. We know what that looks like. And hopefully, by the examples that we've mentioned in this episode, if you are seeing that, good. If you're not, well, let's have a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's always a way to fix it. That's the beauty of the gospel, is that there's always a way to fix it.
Mm-hmm. And I'll say this as we sort of wrap up here. One of the things that my grandma says a lot, and I think I've actually said this on the podcast before, but it applies in a slightly different way here. One of the things she says a lot is, if you're feeling down, see what you can do for somebody else. Because if you get involved in trying to help somebody and trying to do something for somebody besides yourself, you'll realize there's not really anything to be down about. 9 times out of 10.
That's good advice.
I think that's a very good thing to keep in mind, especially in terms of, what is my role in the church?
Yeah.
What is my role in the evangelism that's going on in this congregation, the worship that's going on in this congregation, more about that starting next time, the benevolence, all the different things that go on. What is my role in that, and how can I learn to hone that skill and do it as well as it can possibly be done?
Yeah. Well, let me tell you something. If you feel like you're not doing enough within your congregation, ask an elder, and you'll
get a job. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They'll find you something to do. I promise.
Yep.
Because there is much to do. So, all right. Well, thank you so much for being with us on this episode of the Valley Bible Studies podcast.
We did it. We're done.
Woohoo!
With the series, not with the whole podcast.
No,
we're gonna keep going.
Yeah. We're in season 2.
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
Season 2 of Undisclosed. I don't know how long we'll go.
We'll see. Again, thank you so much for being with us.
But the worship series starts next time.
Yes, and we're very much looking forward to that.
Mm-hmm.
And we look forward to being with you for that episode.
Yep.
And we will see you next time.
See you later.